I've got some breaking news for you. Forget about the election. It appears that America already has its first female president. Check this out. The Biden administration, led by the non-compos mentis Joe Biden, just held its first cabinet meeting in 11 months, which I guess is fine because there's been nothing going on in the world the last year or so. But this is what's interesting. Look who is sitting at the head of the table.
She talked about the fact that sometimes the White House, in her words, surprises you. And for somebody who has worked on women's health issues for her whole career, frankly, as a teacher, but also as the second lady and now as the first lady, she said one of the things that struck her the most was the inequities in medical research, funding for medical research for women. So this is an important priority of hers.
Yes, that's right. It was Jill, or rather Dr. Jill Biden to you. Watch here as the co-president Joe kicked off the meeting and everyone clapped. Well, almost everyone.
The United States continues to be home to the most cutting-edge research in the world and where everyone can lead healthier lives. Thank you.
Oh, poor Joe. Does he not know what's going on, or is he still annoyed at having been usurped again? Anyway, they did actually let the president speak to introduce Jill, and remember, this is a guy who apparently was not capable of running for president, but is still capable of being president.
This is the first time Jill has joined us, and it goes to show how important the issue is, which she's about to speak to the both of us. Today, at the top of our meeting, Jill's going to give an update on the House initiative, White House initiative, to fundamentally change the approach and fund how we approach and fund women's health services.
And if anyone has any doubts that we are now in at least a full co-presidency phase of this president, the official honorary folders for the meeting were emblazoned not just with Joe's signature, but with Jill's, or sorry, Dr. Jill's signature. Now, it's quite crazy when you think about it, how when Donald Trump as president walked slowly down a ramp that one time, remember that? Everybody was ready to go the full 25th Amendment on him. But the media treats this situation as just, normal, not weird. Anyway, speaking of weird versus normal, my God, how about that interview Kamala Harris did with Oprah? Did you see this? Again, in even the most softball forum, Harris was left grasping for answers, laughing nervously, and repeating the same set pieces that have been running her entire mini campaign. First, a bit of Harris just talking about, well, who knows? And there's a great moment here when it looks like even Oprah is having a WTF moment.
One of the greatest expressions for the love of our country, one of the greatest expressions of patriotism, is to fight for the ideals of who we are, which includes freedom to make decisions about your own body, freedom to be safe from gun violence, freedom to have access.
See the look on Oprah's face. What is this woman talking about? Anyway, the purpose of the forum was for Harris to be asked some very basic questions which she still struggled with, even though they're entirely predictable. Here she was being asked about what she'd do about the border.
When you become president, what would be your specific steps? Yeah, of course. What would be specific steps to strengthening the border?
So it's a wonderful and important question. My background was as a prosecutor, and I was also the elected attorney general for 2 terms of a border state. So this is not a theoretical issue for me.
Yeah. She's always on about being a prosecutor, but you know how great a record she had as a prosecutor? Remember this from when Tulsi Gabbard absolutely eviscerated her back in 2020?
I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but She put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California.
That pretty much blew her out of the 2020 primary, and yet she's still talking about what a great prosecutor she was. Anyway, on the border, Harris rambled on for a full 3 minutes before a visibly bored Oprah finally jumped in to save her.
Right. Is it about running on problems or fixing problems? My work and my career has always been about saying, let's fix problems. Let's address the needs, because we know it's within our capacity to do that.
So to answer Justin's question, now that that bill has gone and hasn't passed, will you reintroduce that?
Harris also got a completely unexpected, I mean, why in the world would anybody ask the question about the cost of living? And she got it from this young couple. Check out the panic in her eyes and the total non-answer.
We really would love to know what your plan is to help lower the cost of living.
Yeah, first of all, thank you both for being here. And yours is a story I hear around the country as I travel. And in terms of both rightly having the right to have aspirations and dreams and ambitions for your family, and working hard and finding that the American dream is, for this generation and so many recently, far more elusive than it's been. And we need to deal with that. And there are a number of ways. One is bringing down the cost of everyday necessities, including groceries.
Okay, so let's get this straight. To lower the cost of living, we have to bring down the cost of groceries. Wow, but how? Well, we never told that. Anyway, someone alert the Nobel Prize people. I think we've got a finalist in economics. Oh, and then there was also this fantastic moment. This might be my favorite here. When Harris tried to pretend that she's a red-blooded Second Amendment, gun-loving, real American, having a laugh about the very laughable topic of shooting anyone who broke into her house.
At the
I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If somebody breaks in my house, they're getting shot.
Yes, yes, I hear that. I hear that.
Probably should not have said that.
But
my staff will deal with that later.
How funny here. Kamala, I'm sorry, you're protected by the Secret Service. If anybody's shooting an intruder, it's them, unless, of course, that lady who couldn't holster her gun is in your detail. But who knows? Anyway, I reckon, though, if you parse all of this, Kamala Harris's internal polls are telling her something she's not thrilled about if she's having to go out and pander to gun owners like this. I mean, could it be that the joy has gone out of her campaign? The whole thing, but this whole campaign really revealed Kamala Harris to be an entirely empty vessel without an original thought in her head, which the media doesn't care about, frankly, because they just want to evict Trump so badly from the political scene. And, of course, frankly, whoever is actually running the country, because it's not Joe or even Jill, well, they don't mind this either, because they know if Kamala comes in, they'll still be in charge when the Bidens shuffle off to their beach house for good.